Hey, Sheridan here from Aspen Holistic Health, and let's talk about superfoods. What are superfoods? You hear so much about this is a superfood, that's a superfood. What does a superfood even mean? What is it for? Do we even need them? What makes them so super anyway? So, really, what it comes down to is it's foods that pack a big punch. So, let's say we all know that romaine lettuce is healthy for us. And it is good, but it's not a superfood because a superfood has like tons more nutrients for just a little bit of calories. So it's kind of a nutrients versus calories rule is how you just determine what's a superfood, essentially. And so let's take like a donut, the opposite of a superfood. Donut has a lot of calories, really no nutrients at all, whereas something like chlorella, which we're going to talk about today, has lots and lots of nutrients and really not very many calories at all. So the higher the nutrients and the lower the calories, the bigger punch it makes for your health and nutrition, the more it becomes a superfood. Hi, Amber. Thanks for joining. Okay, so let's talk about one. So chlorella. So chlorella is a major detoxifier, and it's a huge nutrient for anti-aging, and we'll talk more about that. But it goes way back in time. So chlorella was kind of one of the original organisms on the planet when live things started to finally live and make oxygen and that kind of thing. It has a bunch of chlorophyll in it, which is why it's called chlorella. And chlorophyll is this amazing phytochemical. It absorbs radiation, toxins, UV light. That's why it could survive during that time early on in the earth when everything was just so toxic. It's really one of the Earth's detoxifiers and was one of the foods that started to, or one of the plants that started to make oxygen on the planet. And it stopped mutations from happening. And that's why it's so important for us as well. It's really a stabilizer of life and the Earth itself. So chlorophyll is almost identical to hemoglobin, which is what is in our blood. It's kind of like the blood of plants, and we have iron in our hemoglobin, and chlorophyll has magnesium, and that's really the only difference between it. So it's really beneficial to the human body, and no plant on earth has more chlorophyll than chlorella. Chlorophyll is really deodorizing, it's detoxifying, it's chelating, meaning it pulls the heavy metals out of the body. And it has chlorella growth factor, which we'll talk about in a second. But that means it stabilizes and normalizes cell growth in the body, which is a really big deal. It has a lot of nutrients. It's nearly 60% protein, which is a big deal as well. So from a historical perspective, it was studied by the Japanese for being the fastest growing single cell organism because they were concerned during World War II with all the restrictions around them. They needed to find a fast-growing food source that could be grown in water. And so they started studying chlorella and found it had these amazing properties, these phytochemical properties, especially chlorophyll, which is really the most important phytochemical that there is. And so it shows that no matter how fast it replicates or how much stress it's put under, either from chemicals or radiation or UV, etc., it never mutates, ever, ever, ever. So that's huge. Nothing else really does that. So that's why it's such a key benefit to us as a detoxifier. It's really so much more than a superfood. It's like a superfood. So it has a really hard cell wall, so it has to be mechanically or sonically cracked open. The one that I like uses a sonic technology to crack the cell wall, meaning like it hits a really perfect note that shatters it the way an opera singer can shatter a glass, that kind of thing. Once it's broken and all the good stuff is absorbed into the body, those shells, those hard piece of shells, go around and gather up toxins and connect to and bind to heavy metals, other toxins, and just won't let it go and pulls it out of the body. And that's why it's considered one of the best chelators of heavy metals. So in our society now, the modern world, we're exposed to a lot of heavy metals just driving on the freeway, everything all the time. So chlorella is a really good backup plan to help with all of that. It's really great for kids, especially because that's all kids are doing is like replicating cells, building new cells. And so it helps pull heavy metals out of them. And it kind of just puts up a shield around them. So we talked about that Chlorella growth factor before. And what that is it means it really stabilizes things that are growing. So it makes growing things not mutate, which is a big deal, right? Kids, that's all they're doing is growing and making new cells all the time. And so you want those cells to replicate without mutations while kids are growing. Because let's say something happens to the first generation of the cell, and then each cell that moves forward and is made and replicated has that same mutation, it's damaged, and it keeps just paying that forward. So it potentially worsens each time it's replicated because it doesn't have everything right as it needs to move forward. So this just kind of keeps getting worse and worse, and that's why that replication is so important to have that dialed in while it's going on. So when cells are replicating, as they start to split and make two, they get really stretched, and that's when they're the most vulnerable to damage, especially like viruses and free radicals and that kind of thing. And the Chlorella growth factor protects and strengthens that shell when it's stretched to that double size, when it's the most vulnerable, so it isn't damaged. And this is really huge, and that's why it's so important for kids, and really why it's so important for us as well, because really, as the cells get damaged and move forward, that's really the definition of aging. So Chlorella is not only good for detoxifying, it's really good for aging as well. It's a major anti-aging nutrient because along with helping the cells not mutate and replicate as they go forward, also as we started to have oxygen in our atmosphere, which we needed, and Chlorella was a big part of making that, with oxygen comes oxidation, right? So oxygen gives life, but it also can take life away. So Chlorella is a huge antioxidant. It gets detoxifying, it gets rid of those free radicals, those oxidants that are created in the body, which are pretty much almost like toxins because they harm us. And so Chlorella is really one of the most powerful antioxidants. So that's why it's detoxifying and anti-aging. I eat it every single day. It's great for recovery from exercise when you're going to start rebuilding all of your muscle cells. It's great to take before bed when you're going to be, doing all that repair at night. It just anytime, really, you can't go wrong with taking Chlorella. You can get it in tablets or powder. I think it tastes sweet, so I can just drink it, the powder, straight in a juice or add it to smoothies. But you can always take tablets as well if you don't like. Just make sure you can see where it's sourced from, and I like that breaking it apart sonically rather than other mechanical ways. I think it preserves more of the, it doesn't heat it up and break it down. So I like sonically. So again, that's just my little hit on superfoods, and one particular superfood, Chlorella. And Amber, with everything you've got going on, I think this could be especially awesome for you right now. You're probably already all over this because you have so much knowledge, and I'm thinking of you. And I'm Sheridan Semple from Aspen Holistic Health. I'm a nutritionist, holistic health practitioner, and clinical aromatherapist. And I'm here if you have any questions and if I can help support you in your health in any way. Okay, lots of love. Bye.